Welcome to today's expert interview session. This session is about hysterectomy. Hi, my name is Martha Lau. I'm your community captain. And today we have Haley here. She is our hysterectomy group expert in our group. And what better to ask someone that who understands the journey. So Haley, please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I'm Haley Latham. I help women who've lost touch with themselves, whether it be after trauma or hysterectomy or emotional burnout, to reclaim their identity, release what's weighing them down, and come home to who they truly are. So, through subconscious healing, emotional alchemy, and soul led coaching, I guide them through the sacred unraveling into the woman that they're always meant to be.
Definitely, that is good. So I have opened a chat for her as well. So you'll be able to, people who are interested in this topic but a bit shy to ask these questions publicly, feel
Yeah.
free to join us in the chat there. I have placed it in the comments there. So
Beautiful.
let's start with some questions that we have. I found that even one of my friend and even my own parent, my own mom, she had the hysterectomy as well. So what if that I don't feel angry, but I know something is bubbling inside under the surface? What is that like?
Yeah, it's something that I think a lot of us experience, it's um that feeling of, I have adult kids now, right? I'm 49, I'm turning 50 this year. Woo! And you know, one of my kids, he's 30, I think he's 31 or 32 now, lost count. Um, he says to me, he was actually a mirror to me. And this is the thing with people, right? They're a bit of a mirror to us. They show us what is going on inside of us. We can point the finger and say, "You're doing this to me, right? You're making me angry. You're making me anxious. You're making me all these things." But at the end of the day, they're just mirroring back to us what's already going on inside of us. And one day he said to me, you get really angry when you're anxious. And I was like, "Ooh, okay. I hadn't thought about that before." And so when I looked at it, I realized, yes, I live in a little country town with 5,000 population, and my kids live in Brisbane. And so I frequent there to go visit them and to see my grandbabies. And every time I go, as soon as I get up there and I'm hit with the traffic and I'm hit with the shopping centers and the flashing lights and all of the different food venues, I go into anxiety, right? But what that looks like is anger. I get snappy. I get short tempered. I get frustrated. I lose my shit in traffic. And that's what the anxiety looks like. And then on the other hand, I can be anxious, but really what's inside of me is bubbling anger from the people pleasing, from the overwhelm of life, from the trauma that I've been through. And so I think that to answer that question of what if I don't feel angry, but I know something's bubbling under the surface, I think that to a level, we all have anger bubbling under the surface. And it
Mhm.
represents in other ways, like anxiety, like, um, you know, all sorts of different ways, because it's something that we've been really taught to suppress.
Okay. So let's link that into hysterectomy. Why do you think that women who experience this surgery will have that uncontrollable anger more than other people?
Well, I think it's for many reasons. But one of the reasons that comes to my mind is the fact that, for my experience, you know, I was treated like a, you know, cow in a lineup, which I think I talked about a couple of weeks ago. There was, when I went to my surgeon and said, you know what, I want to talk about keeping my ovaries. I want to talk about, like, what does life look like after this? Like, how do I continue, to be able to live a healthy life with a body that, works and isn't breaking down on me, because I saw that with my mum. And they were like, well, that's not how we do things around here. That's, if you choose to keep your ovaries, then we choose not to do the surgery. And I had cancer. I needed the surgery, right? So I was silenced. I was shut down. I wasn't able to express what I was feeling, what was important to me. Anger, in its essence, is that our soul has been crushed. Our soul has been, violated in some way, shut down. Anger is a way of expressing.
Gotcha. So why do you think so many women feel disconnected from themselves after 40?
Well, that's a great question too. Let me tell you, Martha, I grew up with rage front and center in my life. Not the kind of rage that you'd expect, not from a man. The rage that I witnessed every day, it came from my mum. She was filled with fire, not power, not purpose, just fire. And it had no place to go. When I was only a year old, she was diagnosed with ovarian cysts. And back in 1976, there was no alternatives, no holistic support. The only option they gave her was a hysterectomy. But what no one told her back then was that this surgery wouldn't just remove her womb. It would sever something really a lot deeper than that. Her connection to herself, her femininity, her right to grieve, to rage, and to feel. And so she never processed it. She didn't know how to. And it's probably like your mum too. How do they know how to process what they don't understand? And so, and we didn't have amazing tools that we have today, right? So it lived inside of her, in her voice, in her silence, and her rage shaped my childhood and eventually shaped me, because her trauma became my trauma and her rage became my nervous system's normal. And now I look at my mum, she's in her 70s. Her body's breaking down. Her bones are brittle. And I know it cuts me up talking about this. I know in my heart that what hasn't been expressed is still being stored. And this is why I do this work. Because so many women after 40 walk around feeling disconnected from themselves, but they can't quite explain why. And I want to say this: you're not broken. You're full of unfelt truth, grief, swallowed anger, resentment that's been wearing your name like a second skin. I've been studying Ayurveda this past few months to incorporate into my practice, where we're not just working with the subconscious mind or, the mindset shifts as a coach, but in Ayurveda, so that we can bring it into a holistic approach for whole body, mind, soul. And in Ayurveda, we call this armor, emotional toxins that build when we haven't digested our lived experiences. And rage, it's the fire that comes when we haven't been allowed to feel. Right? We're not here to explode. We're not here to honor what's been buried. We're here to meet it, to move it, and to finally set it free. Because rage, it's not dangerous when held with sacred intention. It's the fire that clears what no longer belongs in your body. So, one of my mentors has always said to me, anger is one of the emotions that can burn off clean. absolutely clean. We just need to be given the right space in order to do that.
Mhm. So from what I'm hearing, it's like that to learn how to channel your anger so it can be released. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh-huh. And what will one of the benefits that you can see people will be having?
Well, I see it in my practice every day, and
Mm,
that is a sense of peace that comes over us, a sense of peace, a sense of clarity, a sense of, um, like, when that weight is just lifted off of you,
mhm,
that feeling where you no longer have to carry that weight. When I look at my mum and I share her story, um, and that, she has severe osteoporosis. Her bones
mm,
are fracturing. She could,
mm,
the doctor literally said you could get out of bed and break your hip
mm,
just by moving out of bed.
mm,
And I read a post on Facebook today about another woman who's 55 and talking about, I can just turn over in bed and it hurts. You know,
mm,
this is the kind of things that we're experiencing now as we're aging. But the fact of the matter is we don't necessarily have to. I think that a lot of these aches, a lot of these pains, a lot of this heaviness in our body is stored emotion.
uh-huh. I see. So what is the difference between rage and just being emotional or being stressed out?
Well, um, I guess we all get stressed out, right? You know, we can be like, if you put a match on us, we'll blow up, right? You ever been like that where you're just like, if someone put a match on her, she would just blow up.
Mm,
Something my grandmother used to say.
mm,
Um, and I love that analogy because it kind of means that that person has got this stored up anger, this stored up energy inside of them that you put a match on them, they're going to blow up, right?
mm, mm,
Um,
mm,
Whereas the opposite of that is, just going through life, experiencing, difficult times or stressful times or lots of pressure, lots of overwhelm, it
mm,
kind of burns off pretty quickly.
mm,
Like it will, you might have a weekend away with the girls, or you might have a weekend with your partner, and by Monday morning, you're refreshed, you're ready to go, you're feeling great, right? Stored anger, it lingers.
mm,
You know, it's like when you have trapped emotions, it's like imagining those emotions just building up, building up, building up, building up till you're full of it. And it doesn't matter what happens in your life, anything will set you off because you're not
mm,
just feeling anger from whatever's going on right now. You're feeling anger from all of your life, from all
mm,
the times that you've suppressed it. And so
mm,
I think that's the best way that I can describe when it's just, when you're just stressed out and you've just got some stuff going on, as opposed to
mm,
repressed, stuck emotion that needs to be
mm,
released.
mm. That is so true because I think that understanding why we get so angry or short temper, I think that would help as well because I think that with correct me if I'm wrong, because after hysterectomy, your hormone and your like you don't produce a particular chemical anymore.
Mm.
Is that
Yeah.
right?
Well, that's right. So if you have a hysterectomy and your ovaries are removed, then you
Mm-hmm.
will no longer be producing estrogen. And
Uh,
not only are you not producing estrogen, you're also not producing testosterone, not
uh,
producing progesterone. And so this can have a major impact on you and your emotions, okay,
mm-hmm.
and your body. Um,
Uh,
I'm a huge advocate for HRT, and I know that's a dirty word to a lot of people. But at the end of the day, the research has come through. We need those hormones. Those
mm,
hormones are really, really important to us. And so if that were the case, if you had a hysterectomy, your ovaries were removed, you're starting to notice really big shifts in your emotions, in your
yeah.
moods.
Mm-hmm.
And not only in that, but in your body as well. I think I spoke on this last week. After
Mm,
my hysterectomy, within a couple of weeks, I started feeling my hands, like my fingers were tight and tense and
mm,
sore, and my joints were stiff. Like
yeah.
they were signs that my body was screaming for hormones that
Mm,
I just wasn't producing anymore. Um,
mm-hmm.
so I think that if it's a case of like a sudden change like that, really, really important to have a conversation with your doctor, and to talk about HRT, to talk about options um,
Yeah.
that are best for you. I mean, the bioidentical hormones that are available today
Mm.
are a lot different, a lot better than what they were 5, 10, 20 years ago.
Yes, definitely. I think that's the difference. I think a lot of people don't realize that there is a lot of things that they can actually do differently. So let's talk about this wage program that you actually have on. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? How it could help women, especially after they experience hysterectomy?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had a lot of inquiries into this lately because of the advertising that I've been doing about the Sacred Rage event that we've got coming up. Um,
Mm,
and so it's a way to be able to alchemize the old the old rage, the old anger that we've been carrying around, whether it be from having a hysterectomy or whether it be from just years and years of suppressing this anger, which a lot of us women do. Because
mm,
in in women, anger can be a difficult emotion to express.
mm,
Women can feel that it's destructive or dangerous to be able to express it. I'm going to give you a couple of views on this, Martha, if you don't mind.
yeah.
One is through the Ayurvedic lens, which I've been working through a lot lately, um,
Mm,
because for many of us, especially as women, anger has been framed as dangerous or disruptive or even shameful to
mm,
to experience it.
mm,
We're taught to push it down, to smile through it. But in Ayurveda, we understand emotions differently. They're not good or bad, and often we can put this label on emotions. They're either good or they're bad. But at the end of the day, they're energy. And energy is meant to be moved. It's meant to be metabolized and digested. And when we don't process energy, then it can become armor, which is toxic buildup in the body and the mind. So,
mhm,
rage in particular is a fiery expression of unmet needs,
mhm,
boundaries crossed, and truth
mhm,
unspoken. And that's a really important point. And so, I'm going to just say that again. So, rage is a fiery expression of unmet needs. So, our needs have not been met, our boundaries have been crossed, or our truth has been unspoken.
mm,
So when repressed, it throws our pitta dosha out of balance. So that can
mm,
lead to inflammation, burnout, liver issues, internalized self-criticism. But when
mhm,
expressed sacredly within a presence, an intention, a container, like a container, like what we're talking about, rage becomes a catalyst for purification. We can cleanse it. It becomes a sacred fire, the fire that says no more. It's
mm,
the fire that burns away shame and people pleasing, the fire that clears emotional residue and restores vitality. Because, and I know you get this, like, because you've had this in your past from your trauma of like people pleasing and wanting to, do the right thing by everybody else instead of
mm,
worrying about what's important to you, right? And I think we've all been there, many of us. Um, that that builds anger inside of us. It builds a rage, a fire inside of us by continuing to say yes to others and no to ourselves.
mm,
And so, in many Ayurvedic and yogic, like yoga traditions, this is a realm of the goddess Kali, the fierce mothering force that doesn't destroy you, but what but lets go of what no longer serves you. So
Mhm.
yes, like rage can be sacred. When it's met consciously, it liberates us. It's not something that we should fear. It's something that we should honor and finally release.
Mm.
And so for many women, we don't realize we're carrying this rage. We think
Mm.
that we're just emotional or hormonal or stressed out. But what I've learned personally and professionally is that rage often wears disguises, and it can show up as chronic stress. It can show up as snapping at your partner or your kids. It can show up as frustration in traffic, you know,
Mm.
um, anxiety that feels like it's come out of nowhere, like I spoke about earlier. It
Mm.
can be that lump in your throat when you want to speak up, but you don't. It
Mm.
can be that edgy feeling like you're always just one thing away from a meltdown. That
Mm.
if I throw a match on her, she's going to blow up, right?
Mm.
So the truth is, rage is not just yelling or throwing things.
Mm.
It's often the emotional buildup of not being heard or seen or respected for a lot of years.
Mhm.
Um, so the difference between the stress is a response to pressure, right?
Mm.
Emotions are energy in motion, and I've talked about this before. Emotions are energy in motion, so they come and go when we allow them to move. But
Mm.
rage is what happens when those emotions don't get expressed, when they get
Mm.
trapped, suppressed, swallowed, and then they build. And over years, decades, lifetimes, it becomes a kind of like an emotional toxicity that affects your nervous
Mm.
system. It can affect your hormones, your digestion, your boundaries. It can affect your entire sense of self.
Mm.
And so that's what sacred rage is about. It's about releasing that.
That sounds very interesting. I think that that will trigger a few feathers in here, and let's see what will actually come up onto
Yeah.
this. So
Yeah,
anyone who's
absolutely.
interested, definitely have a look at the link in the comments there. That's what I have put it inside. I also put down the community chat as well for anyone who's interested to actually have a look at that. Any other words that you would like to share with us today, Haley?
Well, we've spoken about a lot tonight. And so
Mm.
whether it's grief or disconnection or anxiety or that feeling of holding it all in, it often comes back to unprocessed emotion.
Mm.
And a lot of women, especially after a hysterectomy, have been taught to skip over one emotion in particular,
Uh-huh.
and
That
that's
is.
that's anger.
Mm.
We don't talk about it. We don't let ourselves feel it. And yet it shows up in our stress, in our snapping, in our, shutdown, in our all of those places, right?
Yeah.
That's why I've created something really special, something I wish my mum had access to. I wish I
Mm.
had access to years and years ago, something that I believe every woman should experience at least once in her life. And that
Mm.
is called the sacred rage. It's that one night of emotional alchemy where we finally stop swallowing our anger and we start letting it go.
Mm.
So I invite you, if you felt something that stirred up in you during tonight's conversation, um, if you know that you're holding something that you're ready to release, I'd
Mm.
really love to invite you. So drop in the comments or click on the link, have a look, uh, and see if it feels right for you. I'd love to.
Sounds amazing. I think that sounds amazing. Haley, thank you so much again for giving us your time. It is very valuable, and I think that a lot of our audience here will be interested into looking into more. So everyone, we're back here again next week at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday night. So if you have any question, feel free to drop it into the comments or join the community chat to ask for more questions. We'll be here looking after you, and Haley will be the person who's answering all the questions about hysterectomy healing in with more of a holistic way, not what the doctors tell you. So thank you once again, Haley, for
Thank
joining us
you.
today.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you to our audience, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.